I know we didn't have time for all the introductions, Steve. I appreciate that. But I'm the one that gets to be up here presenting this plan and this speech, but I'm a member of a team. And I just ask if very quickly the MLAs that are here could just stand up and wave and quickly be acknowledged. I'm so grateful to be have them on the team. This is going to be a longer speech. Full disclosure. It's a 66-page growth plan for the province that we're presenting today. I won't read all 66 pages, but in order to cover most of the highlights, it might go on a little bit longer than usual, and you might be remembering that old joke about what does it mean when a country preacher looks at his watch? Absolutely nothing. The speech is billed as the State of the Province address, and actually we're going to be talking about the future state of the province if we get things right in Saskatchewan. But if you want a State of the Province address, I think it could be summed up today in our provincial motto, which is multis e gentibus vires, from many people's strength. We are many people today, many more people than we were a short time ago, and we're strong. The province is strong. We were in Atlantic Canada this summer, our family was, to attend Premier's meetings and also for a little bit of a holiday. And on our way back from Halifax, we were flying from Halifax to Toronto to catch a connector plane there. We sat beside a young man who was by himself on the plane. My wife sat beside him. He was 19, and so she immediately took on the role as mom. And Tammy started asking this young fellow a lot of questions. The first one was, "Where are you headed?" He said, "I'm going to Regina." "Why are you going to Regina?" she said. And he said, "Well, I've got a job in Regina. Couldn't find work at home. My buddy's been in Saskatchewan for a while, for 4 or 5 years. He's been telling me that I should come and join him. I've got a place to live, and I'm going to Regina." So a good conversation ensued. He had a lot of questions. I kind of leaned over and chatted him up a little bit, and he asked me, "How much do cars cost in Saskatchewan?" And I told him what we had sold our 2004 Honda Accord for just a while ago, and he said, "Well, that doesn't sound like very much," which is actually what I thought at the time that we sold it. We talked to him a little bit about the riders and things to do and see in Saskatchewan, and he was pretty excited for his future. So I've got a question for you today. Is that story a good thing for Saskatchewan? There's been about 80,000 other stories like that over the last 5 years or so because of what you've been doing, because of the province you've been building. But is that growth a good thing? Do you think it's a good thing that in the population stats that were released last month, we've seen record quarterly growth and year-over-year growth, the likes of which we haven't seen around here since 1921? Because, you know, we're all waiting a little longer in traffic today than we used to. And there are challenges around housing and around infrastructure. So how then do we answer the question? Is this a good thing? And do we want it to continue? We want to present the answer of the government of Saskatchewan today. Our answer to that question, and I think your answer to that question, is unequivocally, yes, we do want the growth to continue in Saskatchewan now and into the future. That growth is paying for a better quality of life. That growth has helped us pay down 44% of the debt. It's helped us drop 114,000 Saskatchewan people, low-income people, off the tax rolls. That growth is helping to fund, together with partner STARS, that launched here in Saskatoon yesterday, and 54 minutes after they launched, responded to a call for help in Tisdale, Saskatchewan. That's what growth pays for. It pays for a children's hospital. It pays for a better social safety net. And that growth is not really the purpose for our plan today. It's the means to these ends. These list of things that we can do because we have a broadening tax base and more fiscal capacity, this list of what we do with the dividends of growth is the reason why we must continue to pursue it. A few years ago, a Harvard economist, Benjamin Friedman, wrote a book. It's called The Moral Consequences of Economic Growth. He offered this: economic growth, meaning a rising standard of living for the clear majority of citizens, more often than not fosters greater opportunity, tolerance of diversity, social mobility, a commitment to fairness, and a dedication to democracy. In other words, Friedman is saying growth is not just an economic imperative. Growth is a social imperative. It's the why. This social imperative is the why we want to see the province continuing to grow. So, what about the what? I am pleased today to present the growth plan for Saskatchewan, Vision 2020 and beyond. It begins with a goal that Saskatchewan will be a province of 1.2 million people by 2020. There are many other specific targets and goals in this plan, but none as important as this overarching objective, which will inform our decisions and focus our efforts. There are many targets and goals in this particular plan. There are targets that are informed not just by the government's experience, the experience of other places that have successful growth agendas. They're informed by your input. We had MLAs travel the province this summer to ask constituents about their priorities for a growing Saskatchewan. How do we keep it growing? How do we meet the challenges of growth so it doesn't trip up on itself? And because of that input, because of our experience, we are presenting today a 6-point, 6-component plan for growth in Saskatchewan. Our MLAs, by the way, heard loud and clear that the first priority, the first component of the plan must be infrastructure. Public investment in infrastructure in this province over the last 4 years is up 63% because of what cities have done. Here in Saskatoon, for example, Mayor, what we've done as a province, and for a while we had the federal government program helping as well. 63% increase in infrastructure, and yet we know that there is much more that needs to be done. In this plan, we're announcing an additional $2.5 billion in infrastructure spending to the end of our term. We're also announcing the creation of a new central agency of government without government getting any bigger. It's called Sask Builds. Sask Builds will be asked by the government to take care of the long-term planning for the infrastructure needs of the province. We've taken a 5-year rolling plan in highways, and it's worked quite well to sort of take some of the temporal, more political considerations out of things and make sure we're doing the right thing by our highway system in the longer term with a lot more work needed to be done, we readily admit. We want that same sort of focus, that same sort of planning horizon for the government, for the province as a whole, and Sask Builds will be asked to provide it. Sask Builds will be asked to do one other thing, to explore innovative ways to achieve large infrastructure investments in the province in a timely way. Depending who you talk to in Saskatoon, this city needs one bridge, it maybe needs 2 bridges more, and we might need to reopen an existing bridge. It's expensive. Prince Albert believes they need a bridge. There's a bypass project proposal for our capital city that's between $500 and $700 million. We probably should be looking at about $1 billion increase in investment in water infrastructure to take care of water supply needs going off into the future. You can see these numbers are big. And if we rely on conventional methods of funding, of annual funding from the government, they won't get done in a timely way to meet the challenges of growth, to sustain the growth in the province. And so we're going to ask Sask Builds to explore aggressively P3s, to work with the private sector, to work with other partners, to make sure we leverage immediate dollars and get to the projects more quickly. We're also taking $150 million from the Growth and Financial Security Fund, the Rainy Day Fund, to immediately seed Sask Builds, to capitalize it so it can start looking at these needed projects and having the leverage to achieve them more quickly than otherwise would be possible. We will continue to work with our municipal partners to develop an infrastructure program separate from the revenue sharing. Revenue sharing to our cities is up 87% and our towns and villages. That's from the first term of our government. But separate and above that, and the municipalities will tell you we need an infrastructure partnership, properly resourced, and we're going to get that concluded. The federal government has alluded to the fact that they want to consider a tripartite program again. So we're going to obviously wait and hear what they have to say. Whereas one specific announcement in the growth plan around infrastructure that I want to share with you as well, it's that we are going to build the connector that is Highway 914 in the Athabasca Basin. It's absolutely essential for for continued growth in a very exciting industry in uranium now, the Chinese market opening up to our companies and our uranium. We make that announcement today. It's a $30 million commitment on behalf of the province, and we thank Cameco, who are prepared to provide the other $30 million. They'll probably have some industry partners involved as well, and they're here today, and we thank them for this partnership, and we look forward to getting the work started very, very soon. Housing is another important piece of the infrastructure puzzle for us. We built a lot more public units. We have Head Start in a Home. We have some grant program partnerships with municipalities, and we're seeing new units come on stream, but it is still very tight in terms of the housing market in this province. In the plan, we announced another $344 million going forward to the end of the term. We think that'll build about 12,600 new units. We're also announcing that we've made a decision with respect to the inventory in Sask Housing. June Drowdy is the minister and has highlighted for Cabinet that the government owns a lot of single-family dwelling, a lot of single-family residences in Regina, in Saskatoon, and Prince Albert. We think that they're worth about $53 million. We're going to monetize those residences and build multifamily residential units. We need more units. We need a greater public inventory, and this makes sense for us. This is a step we're taking. We also own a lot of land in Regina through Sask Housing, and June's working to also monetize that. We're not in the land business. Sask Housing isn't. It's in the housing business, so we want to convert that into more multifamily residences across the province. Water security and supply is key to the infrastructure plan going forward. Right now, we've embarked on a 10-year review of our existing water infrastructure to make sure our dams and water structures are in good shape. Number one. Number two, right now the Water Security Agency is also working with consultants to identify supply needs going forward. We have enough water supply now for the projects on the books and potential future projects we're aware of, large industrial projects, especially out of the Buffalo Pound situation, but we ought to be planning for the future, for more growth. And so that work is underway and very much a part of the plan as well. Second component of our plan is the labor shortage. We heard that loud and clear. Our MLAs reported it back to the caucus as well. Here again, we've worked hard on this issue over the last 4 years. We're not coming to these challenges anew. In terms of the number of immigrant nominees under the SINP program, I could tell you we're up 140% in the last 4 years. I could tell you that we've increased investment in apprenticeships by 58%, that the number of apprenticeship opportunities is up 43%. The youth apprenticeship opportunity numbers up 71%, and still we need more. We're announcing in the growth plan today an additional 300 apprenticeship positions in the province. We're also announcing that our government before the end of this term will eliminate the adult basic education wait list. I asked our officials how many people are on the wait list, people who want ABE so that they can maybe take the next step in education so that they can become a part of this economy. And the answer surprised me. The answer is 2,600 people in our province today that are waiting to take adult basic education. We need to eliminate that wait list. If we're thinking long-term about labor shortage in this province and just investing in people who want to be a part of a growing economy. We're going to launch a new agriculture professionals operators course at SIAS perhaps. We'll find the right institution. We'll get the industry to partner with us. This is an idea that came out of Kindersley through this process. It was noted that we may have fewer farmers than we have 30, 40 years ago, but a lot of people are working in farming. These young people, men and women, are operating $250,000 high-clearance sprayers and $400,000 combines, and maybe there ought to be a professional operators course for that and other activities of those who work on farms. When Bill Boyd got his first high-clearance sprayer some years ago, he told me what it was like, and I kind of knew what they looked like. I thought they were pretty cool, and I said, could I come out to your farm and drive it? And he said, no. No, you can't. I think you'd wreck it. These are careers, ladies and gentlemen, that are happening in agriculture as it becomes such a powerful engine of our economy, and we need to support it with the appropriate post-secondary infrastructure. And the industry is interested, by the way, in partnering on this, and we welcome the chance to work with them. We need better alignment in terms of our labor market development. We're grateful for the work that we're doing with the Chamber. That's going to fold in seamlessly to the growth plan going forward. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be very, very focused in the area of greater engagement by Aboriginal people in this province in the economy. Our First Nations people suffer from an unemployment rate of 14%. The unemployment rate for non-Aboriginals is 4%. This gap must close. There is a gap in graduation rates between Aboriginals and non-Aboriginals. This plan deals with the resources that are going to be required for us to see some successful pilot projects that are underway today. In fact, in the city of Saskatoon, led by the Catholic School Division, there's pretty exciting pilots that are demonstrating results, improving graduation rates, improving results for kids. We're going to take those pilots that work, provide the resources necessary to export them across the province. We're going to partner with institutions like SIIT, as we have in the past. What an outstanding organization. They have done a marvelous job of ensuring that the resources that come from the province and from the students themselves translate into an education that puts them to work. Our message to First Nations and to those institutions is bring us these pilots, bring us these opportunities to partner that are driven by results. The gaps must be closed, but we have to move forward in a way that's proven and experiential, and we will. We're going to work with the federal government to try to increase the immigration cap from 4,000 to 6,000. If you know an MP, ask them. If you don't know an MP, find one and ask them. We think the federal government is interested in moving on this. It's essential that they do. We'd like the cap lifted. We're going to increase the number of international students by 50%. We're going to refine the very successful saskjobs.ca website with input from business for those who are recruiting from outside the province and also to better match those who are looking for work in the jobs that are existing in terms of skills. The third component of our growth plan is competitiveness. We have lower taxes over the first 4 years, Fred. You're right. Because of what growth is paid for, because we're listening to priorities from you. And so we're more and more competitive all the time. In terms of personal income taxes, a family of 4 in Saskatchewan keeps more of the money they make before they pay any provincial tax at all than any other province in the Dominion of Canada. But our business rate is still high. Alberta has a rate of 10%. BC is 10%. They're our greatest source of competition. So beginning with the next budget, we will, over the next 2 years, reduce our rate from 12% to 10%. We will also pursue non-refundable tax credits aimed at new growth. Where there's other new growth tax incentives you might be hearing about down the road that we believe will leverage some additional growth in the province and attract some projects. We're competing now for these projects with pretty hungry states in the U.S. and other places in the world who are still in the old grant game. We're not in that game. We're going to play this smarter, we think, by using new growth tax incentives, and they're part of the growth plan going forward as well. And in terms of being competitive, ladies and gentlemen, I have a message for our municipal partners. This is not an easy subject. With growing cities, and I'm not just talking about Regina and Saskatoon, it's almost all the cities, there's pressures with respect to annexation. There's pressures with respect to the need for area. And there are problems. Annexation is not working as smoothly as it should. And I'm not announcing anything specific today. I'm just simply saying to the RMs and to the cities that are involved, we need to solve this. We can't hold back economic development opportunities because of some of the issues that we've been facing. These are not the residents we're talking about. The people we're talking about aren't RM ratepayers. They're not city residents. They're people in the province of Saskatchewan, a province that's growing and a province that needs its municipalities to work together to solve some of these problems so we can approach things as a region and not as cities surrounded by a number of municipalities. And we're going to be watching that very, very carefully. We want to work with our municipal partners to pursue online permitting for overweight loads. This is a barrier to growth in rural Saskatchewan. We want to do it in a way that's fair to the RMs as well, and that's part of the competitiveness piece. And so will be the labor legislative changes we make, which seek to ensure that we are competitive with other jurisdictions, though fair to both employer and the unions. The fourth piece of the growth plan is it's really about our natural resources and agriculture, but it's about how we diversify our economy on that platform. How do we innovate in these two powerful sectors? It used to be in Western Canada that diversification meant trying to replicate the Ontario economy. We should have car plants here, perhaps. We should have more manufacturing, like they do there. That's how we diversify. The Canada West Foundation did a very interesting paper on this a couple years ago. Fact of the matter is that provinces did pursue that in the West, and it didn't work. It typically took a whole bunch of pump priming and government money and picking winners and losers, and I could tell you the government's pretty good at picking the losers. I don't care what stripe it is. It's a failed diversification approach. The diversification approach envisioned in this document is that we would diversify, we would innovate on our platform of strength. We're good at food and fuel and fertilizer. I sometimes miss the third F, and you wouldn't think a politician would miss the fertilizer one, but it's all three of those things. And so that's where the innovation has to happen. It's the Global Food Security Institute we seek to build. It's taking a leadership position again in wheat research and the economic impact that that can have. It's carbon capture and sequestration. It is a clean coal project at Boundary Dam that is coming in on time and on budget and 5 times cleaner than natural gas, capturing 95% of what we want it to capture, producing CO2 that we'll sell, and you'll hear about this later on. We'll sell to oil companies who use it for enhanced oil recovery, so they don't have to drill more wells. They can simply extract more from wells they thought previously to be mature. In addition to this innovation on that platform, and there's others we could talk about, the synchrotron and the Dr. Sylvia Fedoruk Center for Nuclear Innovation. This is all part of the innovation agenda, built on the platform of our strength in terms of a great uranium resource and the others that I've mentioned. We also have to embrace the fact that to be primary producers of these resources and exporters of them and exporters of agriculture products and agri-food is a good thing. Yes, we need to diversify, and we will, but we are a leader, ladies and gentlemen. We're just back from Asia, just back from Indonesia and China, and I can tell you, you are a leader in this world today because of our food and our fuel and our fertilizer. And we're going to, by the way, continue that engagement. That is the fifth component of our growth plan. I think you've heard us say in government that, or I hope you've heard me say that, look, it's not the government that's the reason for all of this growth. There's a lot of external factors at work. We're providentially blessed with these resources, and we've had a bit of good luck, and the world truly wants what we want, and we have all of you. This is the reason for the growth we have. But you know, as a government, we've tried to do the right things on competitiveness, on our labor legislative environment, to help these things along, to help the economy along. And the other thing, that priority we've made in terms of economic development for 4 years, very much featured in this plan going forward, is this international engagement piece. I'm not sure there has been actually another government in recent history, or maybe in the history of the province, that has worked so hard to reach out to these new markets. Our focus will always be in the United States. 60% of our exports go there, but that relationship kind of takes care of itself. We have to tend to it, but it's lower maintenance than the new ones we want to build in Asia, where the government-to-government relationship is important. So this will be our focus in our international engagement plan. Think about this. Last year, our exports, the top 3, oil, $10 billion. Potash, $6.2 billion. Agriculture and agri-food, $8.4 billion. It speaks to the importance of that sector. It also speaks to the fact that the world is getting more hungry, not less hungry. The United Nations is forecasting 2 billion more people on the planet by 2050. More and more middle class are growing in places around the world now, including in Africa, and they desire more protein. We need to make sure that we're engaged with that world, that we're helping our industry, that we're helping STEP tell our story and make these deals and create jobs here at home. We're going to do that. We're on track, ladies and gentlemen, this year to lead British Columbia in exports. Think about that. Not bad for a province that doesn't have a port. Probably won't have one anytime soon unless things really start warming. International exports are up 50% since 2007. 50%. We've got to continue to build on this advantage. We need to be engaged in the market. That will mean trade missions. That will mean 4 in-market contracts we're going to have in these countries with companies. We're not going to open up more trade offices. We have one in Shanghai. We're going to use an in-market presence. We're going to contract in these markets. We're going to go to these markets. We're going to say, thanks for being great customers. We'd like to sell you some more. We're going to continue to support the Saskatchewan Trade-Export Partnership, which pound for pound is an amazing organization within government. It's not really a government organization, it's a partnership. But Lionel, you and your team do an amazing job, and we need to make sure it's properly resourced to continue to do the amazing job around the world. We're going to have a new scholarship in the province for 20 business students. We want them to travel to these markets and work perhaps and learn in these markets for a while and come back and do 5 years of service here so we can continue to build on our plan for international engagement. Final component of the growth plan is fiscal responsibility. We're going to balance the budget. We think that's the very foundation of an effective growth plan, and we're going to continue to pay down the debt. We're going to reduce the debt by the end of this term by another $400 million or so that the debt will have been cut in half from 2007 to the time of the next election. The credit rating upgrade is a powerful thing, especially as places around the world that are going the other direction. It's part of our brand, it's part of the Saskatchewan advantage, and we need to keep it. The final section of the, it's the penultimate section of the growth plan really is, it's about the purpose. You know, again, we go back to that question. Why do we want this growth? Well, we're going to invest in healthcare with the dividends of growth. That's why we want it. We want to continue to reduce surgical wait times. We have targets reiterated, repeated in the plan on that. We want to eliminate emergency room wait times. That's going to take resources. That will take the dividends of growth. We need to improve long-term care. There's a number of different objectives and goals in the plan for growth that we're presenting today. And in education, we need to have some real objectives and targets. We, collectively, all of us, the boards, the government, parents, we have to do better. We have some specific objectives to share in the growth plan that by next year all school divisions will report baseline graduation rates and establish graduation rate targets. By 2014, all divisions will provide supports and services to teen parents to keep them in school, all divisions. By 2016, school divisions will consistently and transparently measure and report student progress. And that's not happening in every instance right now. And by 2020, our objective, ladies and gentlemen, should be that we have the highest grade 12 graduation rate in the country. If the future is really about education, we ought to act like it. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about the beyond part of this Saskatchewan Growth Vision 2020 and beyond. It's probably a product that's just getting older, but I'm thinking more and more about the future, and our kids are getting older, and you kind of start thinking, well, one day they'll make grandkids, and it's probably a product of just getting older, or maybe it's that Tammy keeps adopting these young adults wherever we meet them. That makes me think of these things. Recently, we were at a banquet, fundraising banquet in Swift Current, where Weston Dresser was the keynote speaker, and Tammy and I were there, and you know, she found out he was single. He wasn't dating anyone. She was looking after him in terms of the food that night, make sure he had some. Did he have water to speak? And as we drove home, she said, you know, I've just got to find a nice Saskatchewan girl for Weston so he can stay here. So maybe it's a bit of all of those things, but we're thinking a lot about the future these days, and we should. I don't think we can do too much of that. In the last election, there was a great debate around a proposal for a futures fund from our opponents. We said at the time that idea we thought had some merit, but we believe we should pay the debt off first. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will pay the debt off in this province, and hopefully soon. And that'll be a great day. But what about the day after? What should we do with these revenues for future generations that we think will be there because of the vast resources we have? That long view must also shape our purpose and our vision. And so today I'm pleased to announce that as a part of our growth plan, we will be unveiling the Saskatchewan Heritage Initiative. It will be led by former University of Saskatchewan President Peter McKinnon. Peter McKinnon will develop and recommend options on what Saskatchewan people should do with these resource revenues in a post-debt Saskatchewan. He's going to explore existing ideas. There's models around the world today. One next door in the Heritage Fund. There's the Norway model for a sovereign fund There's what Alaska does. We might want to have our own innovation. We might want to have a formulaic input of resource revenue right into that innovation agenda, right into our universities, right into pre-commercialization and commercialization opportunities. We're not going to limit Peter McKinnon and his work. We want him to canvass these options and then report back to the province on some of these ideas. And I can't think of a better person to lead this initiative than Peter McKinnon. Would you just please stand, Peter, and thanks so much for coming. In conclusion, let me just say that there is such great opportunity in our province to get this right, not just for the short and the midterm, but for the long term. The American writer John Burroughs once wrote, "The lure of the distant and the difficult is deceptive. The great opportunity is where you are." And that's what we're discovering today in Saskatchewan. That's what we've been discovering here for some time. Opportunity isn't located somewhere else, in some other city. That plane from Halifax wasn't going to Fort McMurray. It was coming to Saskatchewan. Opportunity can be found here. It's being found in Saltcoats, where they've got a great minor hockey program again. Why? Because more young families are moving to Saltcoats. It can be found on the Onion Lake First Nation, where there's 700 new jobs for the members of that First Nation because of our resource advantage, because of their entrepreneurship. It can be found in Regina, where an Indian immigrant gave up his welding job and started his own restaurant. And he reports business is brisk. Opportunity is here, right here. And there is a great purpose for this opportunity, if we make it so. For this growth is what the virtuous circle is all about. You know, we used to have the vicious cycle in the province, right? The economy was atrophied, there wasn't the opportunities here, young people left, it made things worse and hurt government's ability to fund quality of life, fund healthcare, fund education. That was the vicious cycle. Now we're into a virtuous circle where the opposite is true. The tax base is expanding, it gives government the chance to invest in quality of life, make it a better place to live, attract more people. We've got to keep that circle going. That opportunity today and the purpose is found in this province that we call home. Long ignored by some, even discounted by others across our country, perhaps. But now a land of opportunity for our people. A place where, again, the dreams of immigrants come true. The dreams of our own citizens are coming true. An international player and a national champion. The best of all, a great place to live and to work and to play and to raise a family. Today, each of us is blessed with the good fortune to live in such a place as this. What should we do then with that opportunity? I'd say we should keep building this place. We should keep building Saskatchewan. Thanks for coming.